I am excited to introduce someone I met, I think, 7 years ago when he came to LAUSD to do a bigger story on LA and climate innovation and climate action. And we had just started the work on the road to 2028 with our transportation electrification partnership. Really, and if you haven't read his recent piece, very personal, poignant piece in Time magazine, please do so on his and his family's experience with the Altadena fires and the fires here in Los Angeles. Please welcome Justine Worland, senior correspondent of Time magazine and winner of the inaugural Climate Journalist of the Year in 2022. Welcome.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. As Matt said, I'm Justine Worland. I write about climate at Time. Recently wrote a story about recovery from the wildfires, my own personal experience as a part of that, growing up in Altadena and having family affected by it. But we're here to have a much bigger discussion about the road to recovery and resilience with this great panel. I'll just well, I guess, can we see everyone's, I'm not even going to introduce everyone because we have very limited time and I want to just get straight into the conversation. All of you come from different parts of this picture about how we have resilient recovery, and yet no sector, no part of this ecosystem can do this alone. And so I want to just start maybe by talking about partnerships. What are the partnerships that can help deliver a resilient recovery for LA? And that is a really big question, but if you can keep it relatively brief so we can get to a lot of different subjects, and we can just start and go across the line.
Hello folks, I'm Darrell Simien. I'm the Senior Vice President of Community Development for Habitat for Humanity of Greater Los Angeles. Really appreciate the question. We thrive on partnerships, public-private partnerships in particular. What we find is that partnering with the cities and the county really helps us amplify our work. We are experts in our space, but those public entities can help, free up the playing field, make rules that help us be able to build quicker and be able to help the community much better.
Hi everyone, I'm Justine Gonzalez and I'm the Executive Director of Philanthropy and Community Impact at Wells Fargo. So representing the business philanthropy perspective today. I'm also a Pasadena resident that was impacted by the fires, and something I heard from a researcher at an event recently was that one of the biggest indicators of how a community will come back from disasters is what kind of social fabric they have and if people know their neighbors. And so something that I think is absolutely critical in terms of partnership is really how we get to know our neighbors and our community members, because that's the first person you go to in times like this. And from a philanthropy standpoint, it's been really impactful for me to have community organizations that have been really active at lifting up that community neighborhood level voice. We've probably, many of us, heard of the block captain model that has been helping the community to recover. And I think having groups that lift up those voices and bring them to the table with funders, with companies, has been really critical.
Yeah, I'd like to say I really appreciate your response. I'm Aloe, Blacc. I'm a singer and a songwriter, but impacted by the Eaton fires. My kids lost their school. I lost a couple of properties, and about 40 families that we engage with on a regular basis lost their homes. And what I found to be really important is that community engagement, community partnerships, nonprofit organizations, and community organizations, because after the Eaton fire, in trying to communicate with everybody across the town, it was very difficult. In my calls to the county, wondering why we couldn't have more massive communication. We have these Amber Alerts that come all to our phones. We have the emergency warnings to evacuate that come to our phones. Why can't we continue to have those conversations with community members? And I understand that it's a lot of legislation that goes into that. So in order to bypass that, we have to be able to come together in partnership with community organizations that have their relationships with individuals in the town, in the cities, and in the municipalities, to be able to communicate and really, sidestep the government, because sometimes what matters most is how we can communicate with one another quicker, faster, without the hurdle of, lengthy legislation that has to requires a lot of time and votes. So.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christos Chrysiliou. I'm the Chief Eco-Sustainability Officer for the LA Unified School District, a new office, a new responsibility that we've were able to develop a few years ago. Prior to that, I used to be the Director of Architecture and Engineering, and I have to say, in terms of the rebuild process and the role of partnerships, to me, it's probably one of the greatest things that I will share. Partnerships at the city level, city, and for us at the school district, mostly with a state architect, being able to expedite and being able to really drive results through these partnerships are great. But also at the same time, while we discuss about partnerships at the city level, also with the utility agencies, you need to have a great partnership. You have to be thinking ahead to be able to, again, expedite and come up with solutions to advance the work that you have in place. And definitely CBOs, I would say at the grassroots levels, because that's where the impacts are. So you have to know the actual people that were impacted and understand the issues, and the best way is to really work at that level, to understand their issues, and then how you can be able to mitigate and come up with solutions. So.
Great. Well, I want to pick up on something, Justine, you used this phrase, social fabric, which I think is such a critical point. It was a big part of my story in watching the Altadena and the broader LA recovery, is seeing not just the buildings destroyed, but the way in which disaster can really tear at social fabric. And so in thinking about rebuilding and reconstructing, we have to think not just about how do we build structures, that's important, but also how do we repair social fabric. And so I want to maybe just start maybe with you, Aloe, just about how are you thinking about that? How are you working on that, that social fabric?
I would say rebuilding community is paramount. It's very difficult when people are distributed far and wide. There are people across the country, some families that we know moved out of the country. And being able to communicate with them about what they need to see, what they want to see in order to come back is vital. What I started talking about day one when we had a convening at my home with survivors was a concept of a community center. Now, Altadena does have a community center in the northwest region of the town, but something that's more centralized, more available to everyone else, and that has programming and offers education and opportunities for deeper communication. As we talk about partnerships with different companies and with government, we want to have the voices centered with the folks who are impacted and who should have a say in what they want to see, as well as being able to communicate with the innovators, technologists, and regulators who can make those kinds of dreams and ideas come to life.
Christos, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, schools are a crucial part of the social fabric of communities.
Schools are the center of communities. I have to say that it was interesting to go through the experience of losing a couple of our sites, Palisades, and it was interesting how we've approached and how we can be able to build that fabric back by bringing back what we had to begin with, and how we can strengthen on that. And interesting enough, between the two different schools that we have, the three sites, two of them specifically, we had two different approaches of how we can be able to rebuild. One of the schools, Marquez Elementary, for example, they wanted to rebuild quickly. They wanted the community to come back, to have that sense of community, to bring that fabric back into the community. That was very important to them. So we did that by rebuilding within less than 9 months. We're able to bring and put portable classrooms back on a school that was wiped out, painted it beautifully, created an atmosphere that is really entertaining for them, so they can be able to build that fabric. Another school site that we lost some of the structures, they felt that they wanted more permanent, and they wanted to wait a little longer to get more permanency in terms of the facilities. So I would say it's not just one solution for everything, Justin. I think it's more like you have to really feel and understand the people, their needs, and come up with solutions that can really support them and their interests.
Yeah, that's such an important point. Just to shift gears a little bit, Justine, I want to just talk a little bit about finance and financing recovery, which is, of course, a critical question. How does all this get paid for, whether that's at the municipal level, whether that's at the small business level, whether that's at sort of a homeowner level. And I guess I would just be curious to get your sense of what are the untapped opportunities that individual firms might contribute to further recovery, and then also important is what are the innovative financing tools that might still be yet to be developed or in development that can help with this?
Yeah, well, I think we've certainly seen that we haven't had the same investment from the government at the federal level that perhaps past disasters have had. And so there really has been this leaning on the private sector and on philanthropy to step in and try to help fill some of that gap. And so at Wells Fargo, we initially made a commitment of $2 million to support immediate recovery needs. And then, really I have spent the last 11 months being at funders' tables, meeting with community organizations to just discuss this very thing. And we recently increased our commitment to $5 million to support rebuilding efforts. And a lot of that is going to support nonprofits that have been working on this issue of developing some innovative financial tools for homeowners who are looking to rebuild. And we know many of them are facing a gap. The insurance proceeds they have, other sources aren't enough to cover the cost of the rebuild. And I want to give a lot of credit to Habitat for Humanity, who is one of our grantees, because they have been really tackling this issue and helping families to rebuild in a way that's very affordable and very fast. And so we've been working with them, we've been working with other organizations, and I think we've just really had to lean on our nonprofit partners and their creativity and their ability to propose solutions quicker, I think often than the private sector has been able to, and present these opportunities that we've been able to invest in and help them scale out.
So you mentioned the word affordable, and I guess I would turn to Darrell and just ask, how do you help ensure that there is an affordable option, particularly for communities and folks who are hardest hit and may not have the resources to rebuild?
No, it's a great question. So for Habitat, we are always looking to meet the homeowners at where they're at in their rebuild journey. And so from the get-go, we were always a presence at the DRCs in both West LA and in Pasadena. And at that time, we were just there to be a beacon of hope and an ear to listen to folks as they were just starting to get a grasp on what had just occurred. And so then from listening to them, we created some distribution events where we recognize that this is going to be a long road, but right now they need mattresses, furniture, non-perishable goods, bedding, glasses, forks. Like, these people lost everything. And so if you put yourself in their shoes, it was really easy for Habitat to be able to garner our partners across the board to say, hey, we need mattresses, so Sit and Sleep stepped up. We need appliances, so Samsung stepped up. Then we moved on to programming. So we're always been a presence in both communities at all of the various events. A lot of great events. The community really, really showed their resiliency in regards to be able to, make it that is their needs are being met. And so through those discussions with folks and being present, we started creating programs, and we reached out to our financial partners. So thank you, Wells Fargo, thank you, BMO, and we created programs that helps folks with repair and rebuild. Our repair programs are mainly grants, so if you qualify, it's free money. And at first it was forgivable loans, but we heard from the community that they weren't interested in taking these loans out against their properties. And so we're like, all right, we hear you, we're gonna make them grants. And then we also have a couple of different programs for folks who are looking to rebuild, because as we all know, the insurance for most of the folks who lost their home does not cover the cost to rebuild their home. And so we have two different programs. One is a gap financing program. So we will help fill in that gap with a zero interest loan for 30 years, and it just sits on the title. It is the last thing on the capital stack. So if they have any other financing that needs to go above that, we are the most subordinate. And then we also have a program where we help folks rebuild. And so, you got to realize 95 to 97% of the folks who lost their home bought their home. They don't know how to rebuild their house. And so we have been working with the Foothill catalog and creating designs that are modest in size, but fit the character of both neighborhoods. And with that, we're moving to our next phase, which we called From Concept to Keys, where we will help them get through that home building process. Our goal is by early next year to have all of those designs pre-approved with the city and with the county, and so the approval process of getting permits is much faster that way. And we're also listening to the community. We can't build a box that can't be fluid, and so all of this stuff is fluid. And so, as I mentioned, we changed the loans to grants. We're also being fluid with our designs. The exteriors might be one thing, but the interiors have the ability to change based on what the homeowners need. And when I tell the homeowners, a lot of times it's like, hey, we're going to help, we're going to build the house. We're going to work with you to build the house. However, you are the ones who are going to make this your home. And we're wanting to get you home. And so that's where we are as far as getting folks back and trying to make it affordable. And at the same time, we are trying to control cost with those designs. We know what they cost, and we know how fast we could build them. And if Habitat LA cannot rebuild them, then we have a group of vetted GCs that we work with that we will make sure they will hold true to the cost of the build.
That's great. That's a lot. It's very comprehensive. Justine, I'm going to maybe just go back to you on that affordability point, and you sort of just alluded to some of the different mechanisms that have come up over the course of the nearly a year now. Maybe you could just give us a little texture, like what does that look like? What are some of those tools that residents are using, homeowners are using?
Well, another one that I've seen and that Wells Fargo actually supported, and I think might be of interest to this room, is Altina recently hosted a prefab and modular housing showcase, which is all about lifting up designs that are prefabricated or modular, which not only can be built back faster, can be built back cheaper, but can be built back much more sustainably. Some of them are made from recycled plastic bottles. Many of them have a lot of fire resiliency technologies built into them. But I think what was really most important about the showcase was that it showed how beautiful these units can be and that they can really feel like a home. They're not a FEMA trailer. They're not something temporary that you're having to make compromises or sacrifices on. They can give you those benefits of affordability and cost and safety, but also really feel like a home. And so I think there's a lot of examples like that out there where we're seeing innovations from nonprofits and trying to see those brought to the community so that they can experience them and decide if they're a good option and the right option for them.
That's right. Prior to the fires, I was really intent on redeveloping one of my properties and using prefab modular. So I had already been looking at the landscape, and somehow, after the fires, I identified a company called Live Large, and they are engaged in prefab modular, and they are fire resilient and energy efficient. From the time that I signed the contract to the time that they put dwellings on my property, it was 5 months, and they were all permitted. And so in terms of pricing, also, it was way better than traditional stick build and any other. So I'm very excited to be able to communicate with my community about what's possible, in addition to the showcase of the modular and prefab, and just like fire resilient concepts like fencing instead of some of the, there are the vinyl fences that you can purchase, and they're very inexpensive, but they're a toxic hazard if they do burn and they melt. So alternatives would be metal, like an aluminum, or a company called Knotwood that uses aluminum to make home siding, pergolas and other outdoor structures, fences, but they have a facing that they put on it to make it look like wood. And there's a lot of great opportunities out there where folks who don't have the money because of the issues with insurance and in the gap, they can engage. And I'm an advocate for certainly the Foothill catalog and prefab and modular.
Just to pull on a thread there, because I think one of the tensions that sometimes arises is a desire to get things going quickly, which is of course critically important, but also it's important to think about resilience in doing that. And I just wonder if folks have any thoughts about how to ensure that while we're moving full speed ahead, we also don't lose track of that resilience point. I don't know if there's anything you'd want to add to it. I mean, you said it well, but I'd be curious, like for LAUSD, how you think about that and how others might think about it.
That's a great question. Justine, so you want to share anything? No, thank you. Certainly, I mean, to me, when you talk about resiliency, you can look at resiliency from many different ways. And every time there's a disaster, we use words like resiliency and how we can become more resilient. And certainly, these disasters are becoming more often. I mean, it could be flooding, it could be fires. We've learned something new. We've seen numbers flying at high speeds that was much to control. The rebuilding should not be an excuse to move faster and deliver faster without really thinking through and come up with solutions that can really anticipate what we're going to be experiencing in the future. And for me, when I think about resiliency, I think of certainly in structures, I think of defensible space, I think of materials that can withstand fires. I think of the building systems and how they can be able to provide and provide healthy, clean air to our students or the environment or anyone, the occupants of the building. I think of a lot of different systems that need to be in place, including microgrids and systems that can be able to sustain and remain operational, specifically for the schools. Our schools are centers for the community. We need to be act as such, and we need to be able to be thinking at that caliber, including the way that they're designed. They're designed for a higher impact. The schools are designed at a different level from any ordinary building. So those are the places that you, your families, and anyone else can go in case of an emergency. So we'll have to be thinking as such and not to try to rush the process where we sacrifice the integrity, we sacrifice the actual resiliency of these structures. So to me, it's something to be taken very serious, to really engage with other organizations. We have organizations like the American Institute of Architects, and I'm talking as an architect, but at the same time, we have professional organizations that can help steer us and share information about latest technology. LAUSD itself, for me, I mean, I'm not saying this is an advertisement for LAUSD, but you know LAUSD very well. You're here. LAUSD, I mean, drives innovation. And every time I go and I meet with them and discuss and see all the companies that we have here today and discussing about how we can really come up with solutions and resiliency ideas, they really drive innovation. And they drive me to think and come up with other solutions myself. So they're very inspiring. So those are the kind of organizations that we need to continue to talk to, communicate, and hopefully we can drive our buildings to become more resilient to withstand not what we're experiencing now, but we're going to be experiencing in the next 5, 10 years, and 20 years from now. So.
And with Habitat, we had already been building our homes very resilient with Simien board siding, our asphalt shingles, defensible space, but for moving forward, we're going to adapt the IBHS, I think it's Wildfire Plus standards, and had a great meeting with them last week, and it was amazing to know that the delta between regular construction and just adding that is less than 3%. And I think everyone who lost their home would gladly have paid that 3% to be able to have their homes more resilient. And also, maximizing technology. AI is really big. There's a great company called HomeRes.ai where I can plug in an address and they can tell me all of the various rebates and subsidies are available to be able to even drop the building cost of the property even more. and provide more resources for the home buyers to not have to put it into a home, but they can actually save that money. And so these are things that we're leveraging, and we're a huge proponent on alternative technology, but I want to turn alternative to the norm. And so our goal is if we are able to utilize these new methods that are coming out and all the great companies that I've been meeting through LAUSD, then we'll be able to get homes even more resilient and make the standard moving forward.
So one of the things, I mean, there's so many great solutions here. I think implicit in some of the answers there are, roadblocks, things that are not necessarily related to, actual capacity to do something, but related to structures, related to processes. And I guess I'd just be curious to hear very briefly from each of you, a reflection perhaps on a roadblock and how we can move past that roadblock. We can start,
So what we've seen is just a lack of communication and lack of information in the community. There's so much information out there, especially when the wildfires first happened, and a lot of folks were distrustful of the information, especially if it came from a governmental entity. And so what Habitat did was we recognized this, and being a trusted voice in the community, we packaged that same information that was readily available into a one-stop shop. And so we were able to share with a lot of folks who were reticent on dealing with FEMA. It's like, no, FEMA is a good thing. You should utilize that. And also just provide them the information and empower them to make a choice. We can give them an opinion, but it's on them to make that choice on their own, but just be able to provide that. And then we created a roadmap to recovery, just a basic A through Z step process of what it takes in general to rebuild your home, just so that they have that base knowledge so that when they're out there discussing building their home with the general contractor or with the architect, then they at least can say, oh, that doesn't sound right. And at the end of the day, they can always reach back out to Habitat LA, and we will counsel them one-on-one at no cost.
Yeah, I would agree that I think access to information, just navigating the inundation of information too has been a big challenge. And to add on to what you shared, I think one piece that has been really critical for us as a financial institution have been HUD-certified housing counseling nonprofits, and who specifically are trained to help individuals to understand, how to look at their mortgage and look at their insurance and really, understand the numbers and the process they have to go through to navigate those systems and rebuild. And I'm just been really grateful to them for trying to help remove those roadblocks for community members, because it's very complex. As someone who had an insurance claim myself, I got to deal with the fun parts of that, and so just really grateful for a lot of the community organizations that are doing this one-on-one with individuals, because that's really what it takes too, is that one-on-one support. So everyone's case is a little bit different.
Absolutely. I'd say disaster case management is one of the huge barriers. There's an organization that I'm on the board of called My Tribe Rise. It's local to Altadena. They've been helping to service their members of the community with some disaster case management, and you find that there's a huge administrative burden to just dealing with insurance, the literacy that it requires to understand mortgage, insurance, dealing with banks, rebuild and permitting. It's quite a burden to overcome. And so My Tribe Rise has enacted a program called Adopt a Family. And for those of the people in the larger Los Angeles area or anywhere that are willing to, they can offer their time and their minds, their understanding, their compassion to help these families manage some of their cases. Just to give them a sense of, I've got your back. I'll hold your hand through this as long as it takes, because really it requires a one-to-one, but I don't know if any entity or organization has that capacity. So, if there's one disaster case manager for 5 to 10 families, that's a huge lift, but it's also a very difficult lift.
Yeah, for me the biggest challenge, honestly, is administrative roadblocks. It's processes, policies that were established 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and we keep using them and we keep reusing them. I think we need to dumble those. We need to start fresh. We need to be more innovative. We need to reestablish trust so we can be able to build as the concept of the master builder, and not processes that were established for other reasons and for other usage. So if we start thinking differently, I think we're going to be able to deliver timely and really save a lot of taxpayers' money and a lot of time as well. So.
Okay, well, I'm going to close this out just with one question looking to 28. Thinking about, the things that we're talking about here are going to help leave a legacy for 28. And I guess just for each of you to reflect on what type of innovation you would like to see more of, what action in the upcoming year will help lead to that as we think ahead to 28. And I'd like to hear from all of you, but we'll start with Aloe first on this one.
The Palisades fire and the Eaton fire have resulted in the loss of thousands upon thousands of homes. It's going to be a huge effort for the County of Los Angeles, City of Los Angeles, to engage at the permitting offices. And I think that new technology is incumbent. It's really important to have new technology that's going to help service this permitting much faster so that people can rebuild and get back home. So that's what I would really like to see going toward 28 with the respect of rebuilding, especially for the folks who have suffered so much.
Justine?
As I was thinking about 2028 and the Olympics, I was thinking about how much I think the community has really come together to lift up the voice of what they need in this recovery process. And my hope is that we can continue to center the community and their voice and extend that, to all of LA County as we think about how all of our communities can engage in the Olympics and take part in the benefits that it can bring to LA. That we're really going and seeking that community voice and ensuring that it's part of our planning process.
I'm hoping that the off-site construction, modular, panelized homes become a norm, and that they also become more accepted into the communities. I think it is one of the ways that we will be able to rebuild faster and rebuild more resilient. And we've been building homes the same way for over 100 years, and the innovation is there. It's time for it to be uptake. So hopefully that's what I see in 2028, more modular builds.
Great. Christos?
And for me, our strongest things that we have now for the LA 28 is our assets. As LA Unified, we've owned over 90 million square feet of building area. We have over 4,500 acres of land, and we serve over 1,400 schools and centers. We have play fields, we have athletic fields, we have Olympic-sized swimming pools, we have our transportation sector is in the midst of being electrified. So I challenge the industry to really look at those assets and see if they can help support us by reestablishing trust and coming up with smart solutions so we can be able to innovate and come up with results, quick results, to be able to showcase the legacy we'll create for the games, but also the legacy we're going to leave behind for this city. The Olympic Games, perhaps it's once every so many years, but at the same time, it creates that sense of emergency. It brings us together. It brings us together to be thinking as one and to be able to champion as one and not just individuals. So I hope that spirit of the games come upon us and we start thinking a little differently and be able to charge ahead and really showcase the world what we can do as LA. So thanks.
Wow, okay. Well, when I first got the brief for this panel and all the ground that we want to cover in this amount of time, I thought it couldn't be done, but this was a great panel. We covered so much, from restoring the social fabric to the finance of how to recover to, I love that last point about channeling the spirit of the games. And so thank you to everyone. Thank you to Lacey for having the conversation. Thank you.